I don't think it's too early at all to say this team could win 70 or 73, breaking the record by the Golden State Warriors, because it's just undeniable.
I want to start in the Western Conference because we just mentioned all those names of really good teams. And then we've got the final boss waiting in the wings with one loss on their resume so far. I don't know. Are the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder going to make things really unfun this year? They look unstoppable right now.
It's possible it could be unfun come playoff time with the way OKC is playing. I mean, how is it possible that their number one defense, statistically one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen in NBA history last year, has been significantly better to begin this season than they were last year without Jalen Williams, who was an all defensive team caliber defensive player? It's mind blowing what OKC is doing so far. SGA, the 30-point streak that he is on, the amount of times he's scored 30 points in under 30 minutes so far this year as well. It is so much like the 73-win Warriors that year. And of course, the Warriors did lose in the NBA Finals, but with OKC, that's what it's beginning to feel like, where they are just smoking teams, resting their guys in fourth quarters, and doing it in an absolute dominant fashion every night without their second best player. But I don't think it's going to be boring come playoff time, though, Mike, because ultimately with OKC and in the Western Conference, Denver, they have the best player in the world in Jokic. Houston is looking like a team that's going to take another step forward. And there's a lot of tough, formidable opponents when it comes April, May for OKC to get to the finals once again. So I don't think it'll be boring. I don't think it'll be easy. But if there's any team that can make it look that way in the West, it would have to be OKC.
Much like when you talk about a hitting streak in baseball reaching milestone achievements, and when you start talking about it, when do you start talking about Oklahoma City and 73 wins?
Right now, today, look, they currently have won 94% of their games, 17-1. So that's a rate of on pace for 76 wins. Is what OKC is doing right now. And so I think with the Thunder at this point for them, 76, 77 wins is probably extreme. They've had a lighter schedule to begin the year, but again, that's without their second best player. And so I don't think it's too early at all to say this team could win 70 or 73, breaking the record by the Golden State Warriors, because it's just undeniable. Remember that year with the Warriors when it's like, wait, can they beat the Bulls 72? It was pretty early on that conversation started, because you know what you're watching with OKC. You know this defense is elite. You know they have one of the game's best players in SGA and one of the deepest teams and one of the best coaches. You know what's in front of you. And so, no, I don't think it's too early to say that. There's no championship hangover at all with this team, probably because none of the guys drink. Some of them still aren't old enough to drink at this point. But with OKC, it would have been understandable, right? If they came out flat this year after winning the finals, but the opposite has happened. They haven't stopped rolling. So no, it's not too early at all to begin that talk.
You mentioned some of the Western Conference teams that could challenge them along the way. I don't know if you were just, didn't get to this name or you don't believe, but the Lakers sitting there in second right now at 12-4. Have you seen enough from them to believe they're capable over the course of a long season and in the playoffs of challenging a team like OKC?
I wouldn't put them quite on that level. Look, anytime you have Luka, we saw him drag a young Mavericks team to a Western Conference Finals. We saw him drag the team to the NBA Finals, well, with the help of Jalen Brunson. And that was a much better roster overall before they lost to Boston in the finals. So we know Luka's capable of taking teams to great heights. But ultimately, I just think this OKC team is so much deeper. SGA is currently better than Luka at this moment, considering what he brings on the defensive end of the floor as well, on top of his offense. So no, I don't think the Lakers can quite challenge OKC, but in a playoff series, of course, anytime you have Luka and you have the Austin Reeves playing at an all-star level and LeBron James, of course, you get a chance. I just don't think the Lakers have anywhere near the amount of depth that OKC has. That's what makes OKC so different. They have both the top-end talent, the all-star, all-NBA caliber talent, but they also have elite depth. You could split OKC in half, and both those teams could make the playoffs. That's just the way it is with them. You can't say that about any other team in the NBA except for the Thunder. And so the Lakers are definitely really good, and they'll be competitive. I just don't see them anywhere near the same level as the Thunder.
So in the Eastern Conference, when we mentioned who we thought the top teams were coming into the year, sans Boston and the Pacers because of the injuries, Not many people, I don't believe, had Detroit. How for real are they?
I think the Pistons are for real. I mean, the Eastern Conference is so much weaker at the top, and that you can make the argument for a lot of teams to end up representing the East in the finals. And Detroit, undoubtedly, they have answered a lot of the preseason questions about him. You lose Malik Beasley. They've done a good job of replacing his shooting with a number of different guys, Duncan Robinson being the biggest name they signed. But then you have guys like Danis Jenkins who come out of nowhere, seemingly, and ends up being a key role player for this team while they dealt with injuries earlier in the year. Jenkins, who, he was in a JUCO school 4 years ago, goes to Iona with Rick Pitino, then transfers to St. John's, undrafted free agent last year, comes out of nowhere, has consecutive games scoring 20-plus points with great efficiency, pulling up like a star for mid-range. And so J.B. Bickerstaff, the Pistons head coach, recently talked about how he's going to maintain a 12-man rotation, which we're talking about depth with the Thunder. Depth was a key for the Pacers last year as well, getting to the finals. And the year prior to that, with the Celtics winning the NBA finals, their depth was a big advantage over the more shallow Mavericks roster. And so with the Pistons, you have an all NBA talent in Cade Cunningham, an emerging all-star and Jalen Duren. And then you have a lot of good quality players behind those guys that fit. And so, yes, the Pistons are indeed a threat, but I would not say they are necessarily a clear-cut favorite, considering they haven't been to those deep levels of the playoffs, whereas the Knicks have been there. They still are a major threat. The Cavaliers could take a big step as well. But ultimately, the Pistons do belong in that conversation for sure.
Not really an on-the-court conversation, but over this weekend, we saw a bit of an on-court dust-up between Ja Morant and Klay Thompson that went really viral, and Klay had some very pointed words for Ja Morant. It was. What did you make of Klay's rebuttal and the criticisms that he levied Ja's way after that whole ordeal?
Look, I thought it was absolutely spot on, everything Klay said, especially the last thing he said, where it's really just such a shame it's all going to waste with Ja Morant. It wasn't too long ago, 2-3 years ago, where Ja Morant was considered a top 15-ish player in the NBA. We saw what he did in the playoffs against the Warriors, and the series the Grizzlies ended up losing. But what a decline ever since then for the off-court reasons, screwing up his career, but also the decline on the court. He's shooting below 20% from three, getting to the rim at a career low rate, finishing at a lower rate than he has. Ja's game on the court has declined, and yet he's still yapping even when he's in street clothes to a guy who's a 4-time champion, a future Hall of Famer, one of the best players as a role player next to Stephen Curry and Draymond Green that we've seen in this last decade. And so Ja Morant, I mean, look, I'm not going to police trash talk. I like trash talk. I wish there was more trash talk in the NBA and they wouldn't, call technicals and whistles for it. But ultimately, I thought for a supposed leader of the team in that situation, after not playing, when you're in street clothes in the game, I thought it was another bad move of many bad moves from him this year when he's had a microphone in his face or when the cameras have been on. I think with Ja, it's disappointing considering some of the other good stuff that Grizzlies team has when it comes to the young players. Ja's going to be a better leader for it all to matter moving forward.
Is he going to be on a different team at some point moving forward?
I mean, it's tough, Mike, because like you look around the NBA, how many teams really need a point guard? How many teams? So many teams have a young point guard or a proven point guard that they're invested in, and it's the same conversation no matter which guard you're talking about. It's the same with LaMelo Ball. If he were to become available, it's the same with Trae Young. If the Hawks, and they're playing great without him right now, Jalen Johnson looking like an all-star. Same thing with Trae. It's the same thing with Ja Morant. How many teams really need a point guard? And so never mind a point guard making the amount of money that Ja Morant does, the amount of baggage that he has, the amount his game has declined. And so for the Grizzlies, even if they just said, you know what, we are open to trading Ja Morant come February trade deadline, that doesn't guarantee there's another team out there that would make an offer that makes it worth giving up on his, hypothetical return to his prior ability. And so I think there's a chance Memphis would be willing to let him go, but ultimately, I don't know. It takes two to tango. I don't know if that other team is out there that would make any sense for the Grizzlies to actually entertain that.
Yeah, not a lot of dance partners, to your point, for the current version of Ja Morant that unfortunately has replaced the one that we thought was a budding superstar.